Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're diving into that research article you sent us today, Learning to be Entrepreneurial. Do family firms gain more from female leadership than non-family firms?
Yeah, get ready to kind of rethink how you view leadership and innovation,
I think this one is going to give us some really interesting takeaways you can actually use.
especially if you're working on building a more entrepreneurial environment, at your company or
Yeah.
wherever you are.
It's all about like how companies learn and how that learning actually turns into, innovation and what role leadership plays in all of that.
The researchers use this term entrepreneurial orientation, or EO, and it basically describes how good a company is at being innovative and proactive and taking risks.
So like that drive to see opportunities and go after them.
Exactly. And the study looks at how a company's learning orientation affects that EO.
Okay, I like it.
They break learning orientation down into three main parts: commitment to learning, shared vision, and open-mindedness.
So commitment to learning. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but to make sure we're all on the same page,
Yeah.
can we define it really quick?
Sure. It's basically how much a company focuses on building a culture of learning from, like all sorts of different sources.
So it's more than just like, having training courses or whatever.
Oh,
It's really got to be baked into how the company does things.
exactly. It's about like making learning part of the DNA of the company.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's shared vision.
Right. Shared vision is all about how well a company can create that sense of shared purpose
Right.
and then use that purpose to guide all of their learning, all their efforts.
So it's kind of like a guiding star that helps everyone understand like what
Uh,
knowledge and skills are really going to move the needle.
Yep. And that brings us to open-mindedness.
Okay, so this is about being willing to like challenge the status quo and be open to new ideas, even if they come from like unexpected places.
Exactly. It's like having intellectual humility, being willing to admit that you don't know everything,
Yeah.
and being open to learning from anyone, no matter what their background is or what their job title is.
So the researchers looked at, was it 322?
Yeah,
Speak
322.
Spanish.
Small and medium-sized enterprises,
Okay.
SMEs.
SMEs, got it. And they found something pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, they found that all three of these learning orientation things we've been talking about, they're all linked to having a stronger entrepreneurial orientation.
So that basically means that if you want your company to be more innovative, to take more risks, you really got to focus on building a culture that embraces all three of these things.
Exactly. That's a huge takeaway that anyone listening can start applying today.
Now things get even more interesting when we look at family-owned businesses.
Yeah, the researchers found that in those companies, that link between learning orientation and entrepreneurial orientation was even stronger.
Oh, interesting. Especially, it looks like, when it came to commitment to learning.
It's like family firms have this extra edge when it comes to turning learning into, actual entrepreneurial action.
Why do you think that is? Any theories?
Well, maybe it's because family businesses have that extra sense of legacy
Okay.
and responsibility for future generations.
So they're thinking long-term.
Exactly. They want to build something that's going to last.
So investing in learning becomes even more important, right?
Exactly. Now, when they looked at gender, they actually found there wasn't a direct link between the CEO's gender and a company's entrepreneurial orientation.
Oh,
But, this is important, things changed when they started looking at whether the company was family-owned or not.
this is where it gets really interesting if you're working in or leading a family business. Tell me more.
So they found that female-led family firms
Okay.
were way better at using their commitment to learning and open-mindedness to boost their EO.
Compared to female-led non-family firms.
Exactly. They were almost as good as the male-led family firms when it came to actually, doing entrepreneurial things.
Wow, so it seems like the family business context maybe gives women leaders a specific advantage.
It could be that the values and the long-term focus you see in family businesses just work really well with how women tend to lead.
So it's not that women are better or worse at leading entrepreneurial ventures. It's that the environment they're in can really make a difference.
That's the idea. It's all about context.
So we've got companies that prioritize learning, doing better at innovating. Family businesses seem to be particularly good at this. And then we've got female leaders in family firms with this unique advantage when it comes to taking action. But we've only scratched the surface here. There's a lot more to unpack, so stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore the theory behind all of this and what it might mean for you. So we've seen that learning is key for companies, if they want to be more entrepreneurial, especially family businesses. But why? What's the reasoning behind all this?
Well, the researchers looked at a couple of interesting theories to try and figure that out.
Okay.
They used social learning theory and gender role congruity theory.
So, like, they combine them
Yeah.
to get a better picture of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. So social learning theory, basically it says we learn by watching and imitating,
Role models.
yeah, especially the ones we see as credible, successful.
Okay, that makes sense. So if a CEO is really embracing learning and, that entrepreneurial mindset, it's more likely their team will follow their lead.
Right. And then gender role congruity theory comes in because it says we have all these ideas about like what's appropriate behavior for men and women.
Oh, so we're talking about those unconscious biases that we were discussing before. That can impact how we judge leaders based on their gender.
Exactly. And because entrepreneurship is often seen as more of a masculine thing, women might have a harder time.
Being seen as a legitimate leader.
Yeah, even if they're doing everything right.
So even if a woman is leading a company that's doing amazingly well, with innovation and risk-taking, she might still run into, like, roadblocks just because of these outdated ideas about what an entrepreneurial leader should look like.
Unfortunately, that's the reality for a lot of women.
And that's where those findings about family businesses become even more interesting.
Right. The researchers think family businesses might provide a different kind of social context.
So maybe things are a little bit more fair, more level.
Potentially, family firms often have this emphasis on communal values, long-term focus,
Right.
and those things might be more in line with what we think of as quote-unquote feminine traits.
Like being collaborative, building relationships.
Exactly. So it's not just about individual traits, but about the environment and how those traits are perceived.
Whether they're seen as valuable, I guess.
Right. And, the study isn't saying that women are inherently better or worse leaders, just that the environment they're in can really make a difference.
Yeah. So for someone listening who's like, okay, this is fascinating, but I don't work in a family business, what's the takeaway?
Well, I think this research shows that all companies need to pay attention to how their culture is affecting women leaders.
So if you're in a leadership position, or if you want to be, really take a look at your company culture. Are you creating an environment where women can actually thrive, reach their full potential?
And it's not just about being fair. It's about recognizing all that talent and leadership potential that's out there.
That's a great point. This research is saying that companies need to support diverse leadership styles.
Absolutely. If they want to be truly innovative and entrepreneurial.
And I think this has implications for individual leaders, too, especially women. Even in environments that maybe aren't ideal, are there things they can do to succeed?
Definitely. For one thing, building a strong network is so important.
Having mentors, allies.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to show off your accomplishments.
Be your own advocate.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of lifelong learning.
Always be learning, growing.
Stay curious. Be open to new ideas and to challenging your own assumptions.
Great advice for anyone, really. This has been such an insightful conversation, but we're not done yet. In our final segment, we're going to bring this all back to you, our listeners, and talk about how you can use these insights to make a real difference in your own career and company.
Yeah.
Stay with us. All right, so let's bring all of this back to you, our listener. We've talked about how a company's approach to learning can really impact its entrepreneurial energy, and we've seen how family businesses have this unique advantage. But now we want to shift gears and focus on what all of this means for you and your work.
We want to make sure you walk away from this deep dive with some actual takeaways you can use.
Right, so as you've been listening, what's been resonating with you? What stands out as relevant to your own situation?
The study makes it clear that a commitment to learning is so essential for any company that wants to be successful,
Especially in today's world, right?
Yeah. So think about your own workplace. What's the learning culture like there?
Do you feel like there's a genuine excitement about new ideas? Or does it feel kind of stagnant?
Are there systems in place that encourage, knowledge sharing and experimentation?
If you're realizing your company could do better in this area, don't worry.
There are things you can do to cultivate that curiosity.
Totally. Like maybe you could start some regular knowledge sharing sessions.
Oh, yeah, where people can share what they're learning.
Or a mentorship program where
Right.
people can learn from each other's experiences.
Right. Or maybe create opportunities for people to collaborate across different teams.
So they can see different perspectives.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about learning new things. It's about being open-minded, too.
Challenging the status quo.
Being willing to question how things have always been done.
Which can be tough, I know, but
It's so important if you want to stay ahead of the curve.
especially now when things are changing so fast.
Absolutely. And we've been talking about leadership and how important that is for fostering this kind of thinking.
So think about your own leadership style.
Or if you're not in a leadership position yet, think about what kind of leader you want to be.
Are you creating an environment where people feel comfortable taking risks?
Do you encourage people to share their ideas, even if they're different from yours?
Those are great questions to ask yourself.
And for women leaders, or aspiring women leaders, this research has some really important insights.
It shows that the context you're in can really impact your success.
So if you're feeling like your environment isn't supporting you, remember those things we talked about earlier?
Like building a strong network, right?
Yeah, finding those mentors and allies who will support you.
And showcasing your accomplishments.
Don't be afraid to be your own advocate.
And no matter who you are, always keep learning.
Stay curious, seek out new experiences, be open to challenging your own assumptions.
Those are great words to live by.
And that's how you build a thriving, innovative company.
This deep dive has given us so much to think about, and we hope it's been helpful for you too.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Building a more entrepreneurial world starts with each of us.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing those boundaries.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.